A single father, 2 jobs, a merciless blizzard on Christmas Eve. Lucas made a choice that cold night. A choice that could cost him the little he had left. Or save his soul. There were only 48 hours left. That was all the time he had before a gavel would hit an oak desk and decide if he would still be a father. 48 hours before the state could rip his daughter, little Alice, from his arms and hand her over to a cold system, or worse, to a mother who never cared. Lucas had 2 days to prove the impossible, that a father's love is worth more than the zeros in a bank account. But at that moment, in the middle of a deserted road covered in ice, none of that mattered. At that moment, he was just trying to survive. After a double shift at the docks, with the biting wind freezing his tears before they could even fall, Lucas could barely feel his fingers. The snowstorm hit the city like a divine punishment. The blinding white turned the world into a dangerous blur. All he wanted was to get home, hug Alice, and put the only gift he could afford under their plastic tree. Then, he saw it. Hazard lights flashing weakly in the white darkness. 2 trembling figures standing beside a luxury SUV that cost more than Lucas would earn in 10 lifetimes. 2 girls, twins, stuck in the snow, dressed like princesses but shivering like lost children. Lucas should have kept driving. God knows he had enough problems of his own. His old truck was failing, he was late, and any delay could mean losing his job. But something in their eyes, that look of absolute despair, reminded him of Alice. It reminded him of what it's like to feel abandoned in the cold when you need warmth the most. So, he stopped. What Lucas didn't know, what he could never have imagined, was that those 2 girls had a father, a powerful father. A stern man who, in less than 2 days, would walk into a courtroom, put on a black robe, and hold Lucas's fate in the palm of his hand. The same man who, years ago, swore that people like Lucas didn't deserve a second chance. Sometimes the people you save on the road are the ones who can destroy your life. Or save it. And sometimes, a simple act of kindness on Christmas becomes the only line of defense between you and the abyss. Before we continue this emotional story, let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing how far our stories reach, and if you believe that good always comes back to you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our inspiring stories. Lucas pulled the handbrake of his old Ford truck, the bald tires sliding slightly on the frozen asphalt before coming to a full stop behind the luxury vehicle. His heater had been broken for weeks, and the interior of the cabin wasn't much warmer than the outside. His breath formed thick white clouds in the air. He sat there for a moment, his calloused hands gripping the peeling steering wheel. The radio hissed a distorted Christmas carol. Silent Night, which felt almost like a mockery in that chaotic situation. "What are you doing, Lucas?" he whispered to himself, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. "You don't have time for this. Mrs. Martha will charge extra if you're late to pick up Alice. You can't afford to waste gas stopping here." The image of Judge Sterling came to his mind. The man who would preside over his hearing the day after tomorrow. A man known in the city as the Ice Gavel. Lucas had heard stories. Sterling didn't tolerate lateness, didn't tolerate excuses, and above all, detested poor people he considered irresponsible. If Lucas lost this job because he was late on Monday due to a flu he caught in the rain, the judge would use it against him. Financial instability, the ex-wife's lawyer would say. But then, through the foggy windshield, he saw one of the girls outside hugging herself, her knees shaking violently. They weren't dressed for a Chicago blizzard, they were dressed for a gala. Thin silk against negative 10-degree winds. Lucas cursed softly, turned off the engine, and opened the door. The wind hit him like a physical punch. Snow blew through every crack in his worn coat, biting his skin. He lowered his head against the gale and walked toward the luxury car, his old boots sinking into the soft snow. The twins jumped in surprise as he approached. They were identical, young, maybe 19 or 20. Delicate faces, mascara smeared by frozen tears, and expressions of pure terror. "Car trouble?" Lucas shouted over the howling wind. The girl closest to him nodded frantically, her teeth chattering audibly. It just stopped. The engine died, and the lights are fading. We're freezing." Lucas looked at the vehicle. A brand new Mercedes G-Wagon. a luxury tank that probably had more technology on the dashboard than Lucas's entire house. "Did you call insurance? Or family?" Lucas asked, rubbing his hands together to keep the circulation going. "Our phones." The other twin, huddled near the tire, spoke with a trembling voice. "No signal. And my battery died from the cold. We tried to signal the cars passing by, but no one stopped. No one, except you." There was a silent accusation in her voice, not against Lucas, but against the world. Cars zoomed by in the left lane, completely ignoring the two young women in danger. It was Christmas Eve, and Charity seemed to have stayed at home. "All right," Lucas said, taking control of the situation. "Get in your car. Close the door to keep what little heat is left. I'll look at the engine." "Are you a mechanic?" the first girl asked, hope shining in her eyes. "I've been a lot of things," Lucas replied with a sad half-smile. "Today, I'm just a guy with a toolbox." As they got into the car, Lucas went to his truck and grabbed his flashlight and rusted toolbox. His hands were already aching, his fingertips turning white and numb. He knew this was dangerous. Hypothermia was no joke, and he didn't have proper gloves. He had given them to a homeless man last week, in a moment of emotional weakness. He popped the hood of the Mercedes. The engine was warm, but silent. Lucas shone the light into the machine's vitals. It didn't take long to figure it out. The alternator. The belt had snapped. Modern cars with all those seat heaters and digital screens drain the battery in minutes if the alternator isn't charging. Was it fixable? Not there. Not without a new belt. But he could do a temporary fix if he had something strong enough, just to get the car to the service station a few miles away. Or at least, he could jump-start it from his truck to give them some heat. He worked fast, but the cold was relentless. Snow melted down his neck, soaking his shirt under his coat. His fingers slipped on the freezing metal, cutting his skin. Blood mixed with grease. After 20 minutes that felt like hours, he managed to make a direct connection to his truck's battery. "Try it now," he shouted. The Mercedes engine coughed, sputtered, and finally roared back to life. The lights came on strong. The heater began to hum again. Lucas closed the hood and went to the driver's window. The girl rolled it down, a blast of warm air hitting Lucas's frozen face like a summer kiss. "You need to go straight to the service station at exit 42. Don't turn the car off for anything. If you shut it down, it won't start again. Do you understand?" "We understand," they said in unison. They seemed to be crying with relief. The one in the passenger seat began reaching into her designer purse. She pulled out a thick wad of cash. There were 50s and hundreds. There was maybe $500 there. Lucas looked at the money. $500. That would pay the overdue rent. It would buy Alice the dollhouse she wanted. Not the generic doll he had managed to get. It would pay the electric bill. His hand trembled. Not from the cold, but from temptation. He could take it. They were rich. They wouldn't miss it. It was fair, wasn't it? He saved them. Lucas looked at the money and then into the girl's eyes. They were young, the age his sister was when she passed away. They were just scared kids with unlimited credit cards. "Keep your money," Lucas said, his voice firm, gently pushing her hand back. "But you saved our Christmas," the girl insisted. "Please, our father would be furious if he knew we didn't pay whoever helped us. He says everything has a price. Tell your father that in this part of town, we help because it's the right thing to do, not because of the price." Lucas stepped away from the car, but stopped when he saw the girl in the back seat shivering violently, even with the heater on. The cold shock was still there. Without a second thought, Lucas took off his own thick wool scarf, an old gift from Alice, handmade, a bit crooked and full of the wrong colors, and handed it through the window. "Put this on her. It'll help stop the shivering. It's ugly, but it's warm." "Thank you," the driver whispered, genuinely touched. "What's your name, so we can tell our father who saved us?" "Lucas. Lucas Miller. I'm Bella, and this is Sophia." "Thank you, Lucas." The Mercedes pulled away, kicking up a cloud of snow, and disappeared into the white night, taking the warmth and the promise of wealth with it. Lucas was left alone on the dark road. He ran back to his truck, shaking uncontrollably now. His teeth were chattering so hard his jaw ached. He turned the key in the ignition. Click. Nothing. He turned it again. Click. Click. Silence. The effort of jump-starting the Mercedes, combined with the extreme cold and his already old battery, had drained the remaining charge. Lucas hit his forehead against the steering wheel. A cry of frustration caught in his throat. He was stuck. In the middle of nowhere. On Christmas Eve. And if he didn't get home, Mrs. Martha would call child services. She had threatened it before. The universe seemed to be laughing at him. He had just done the good deed of the year, and his reward was being isolated in the ice. While Lucas desperately tried to get the engine to start, miles away, in the safest and warmest mansion in the city, Judge Richard Sterling paced back and forth in his living room, the fire from the hearth reflecting in his impatient eyes. He looked at the grandfather clock. "Where are they?" he muttered, the deep voice that made lawyers tremble in court. "If they are 1 minute later, I'm cutting off their cards. Irresponsibility. It's the curse of this generation." Little did he know that the man he was about to judge on Monday was the only reason his daughters were coming home at all. The silence inside Lucas's truck was deafening, broken only by the sound of the wind howling like a hungry wolf outside. He hit his head against the steering wheel once more. "Stupid. You're so stupid, Lucas," he whispered, the mist of his breath filling the freezing air of the cabin. The fuel gauge was on empty, the battery was dead. And worst of all, the clock on the dashboard read 8:45 p.m. Mrs. Martha needed to leave at 9 quine for Christmas Eve Mass. If he didn't arrive, she would be furious. Or worse, she might call social services, thinking something had happened to him. With the custody hearing on Monday, any incident, any abandonment, would be fatal. Lucas got out of the car again. His legs felt like blocks of cement. He went to the middle of the road and started waving. 10 minutes passed, 20 minutes. 3 cars went by, none slowed down. Snow accumulated on his shoulders, turning him into a living, desperate snowman. Finally, an old, noisy tow truck pulled over. The driver, a heavy-set man chewing on a toothpick, rolled down the window. "Trouble, buddy?" "My battery died," Lucas said, his teeth chattering violently. "I just need a quick jump, or a ride to the south side. Please, my daughter is waiting for me." The man looked at Lucas, evaluating his worn-out clothes. "A jump is $50. A tow is $150. It's Christmas Eve. Emergency rates." Lucas felt his stomach turn. I don't have 50. I have 20. It's all I have in my wallet. I just helped 2 girls and my battery died in the process. Please." The driver laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Everybody's got a sob story today, pal. $20 pays for the gas for me to pull over here. Hand it over." Lucas handed over the crumpled $20 bill, the money that was supposed to buy the roast chicken for his and Alice's dinner. The man got out, connected the cables half-heartedly, gave the charge for 30 seconds, and packed it all up. "Lucky for you I stopped. Merry Christmas," he grunted, driving off before Lucas could even say thank you. Lucas got into the truck. The engine started. He was alive, but he was broke, and he was freezing. As he drove back to the city, feeling the heater take forever to work, a single warm tear ran down his cold face. He had done the right thing. So why did it feel like the world was punishing him for it? Meanwhile, at the wrought iron gates of the Sterling mansion, the Mercedes pulled smoothly into the heated garage. Bella and Sophia got out of the car, still shaking a little, but relieved. The main door of the house opened before they could even touch the handle. Judge Richard Sterling stood there. He wore a gray cashmere sweater and held a glass of scotch. His expression wasn't one of relief, it was one of judgment. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" His voice echoed through the marble foyer. "Your mother is hysterical in there. Dinner was served an hour ago." "Dad, calm down," Sophia started, taking off her coat. "The car died. We were stuck in the blizzard. It was horrible." Richard raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "The car died? That car just came back from service last week." "It's serious, Dad," Bella intervened. "We were freezing. No one stopped. We were there for almost an hour. We thought we were going to freeze to death." Richard's wife, Helena, ran down the stairs and hugged her daughters. "Oh my God, you're ice cold! Richard, stop lecturing, they could have been hurt!" The judge sighed, taking a sip of his drink. "But they weren't. And how did you get here? Did the car fix itself by some Christmas miracle?" "A man stopped," Sophia said, and her eyes brightened at the memory. A man in an old truck. He looked tired, poor. But he stopped. He used his battery to start ours. He stayed out there in the snow without gloves, working on the engine while we stayed in the heat. Richard snorted, walking to the window to watch the snow fall. And how much did he charge? I bet he saw two rich girls in a Mercedes and saw an opportunity to make a month's salary. How much did you give him? 500? 1,000? Bella and Sophia exchanged a look. Nothing, Bella said. We offered him everything we had in our wallets. He wouldn't take it. He gave the money back. Richard stopped. He turned slowly, the ice in his glass clinking. He gave it back? Yes. He said he helps because it's the right thing to do, not because of the price. And he even gave me this. Sophia unwrapped the scarf from her neck. The cheap wool fabric, colorful and poorly made, looked like a dirty rag against the perfect marble floor and the designer clothes. Richard looked at the scarf with disdain. He probably stole your wallets when you weren't looking, or wrote down the plate to try some lawsuit later. Men like that don't do anything for free, Sophia. I see types like him in my courtroom every day. They always want something. Kindness is just a mask for manipulation. You're wrong, Dad, Sophia said, with a firmness that surprised the judge. He was good. He talked about his daughter. He said he hoped someone would do the same for his daughter. It's a sympathy tactic, Richard dismissed, waving his hand. Go get changed. Dinner is cold, just like your mother's patience. As the girls went upstairs, frustrated with their father's coldness, Richard stood looking at the forgotten scarf on an armchair in the hall. For a second, just a second, he felt a twinge of doubt. But he crushed it quickly. Years of judging criminals and liars had hardened his heart. He knew how the world worked. No one gives anything for free. Lucas parked the truck in front of the brick building where he lived. He ran up the stairs, ignoring the pain in his knees and the shaking that had taken over his body. It was 9:15 p.m. He opened the door to apartment 4B. The smell of cinnamon and dust greeted him. Mrs. Martha was standing there, wearing her coat, bag already on her shoulder. You're late, Lucas, she said sternly, but her eyes softened when she saw the state of him. He was pale, lips blue, wet hair matted to his forehead. I'm sorry, Mrs. Martha. The car, the snow, no need to explain. Just try not to do it again. You know the social worker calls the neighbors sometimes. If I hadn't been here. I know. Thank you. I don't have the $20 I promised for the extra hour today. I had to use it for the tow, but I'll pay you on Monday. I promise. The old woman sighed. She looked at the room, where a small plastic Christmas tree held only 3 colored ornaments and a crooked star. Forget the money, Lucas. Go get warm. Alice is waiting up for you. She refused to go to sleep without you. When the door closed, Lucas leaned against the wood, closing his eyes. He was exhausted. He could feel the fever starting to rise. Daddy? The small voice came from the couch. Alice, 6 years old, was wrapped in a blanket, her big brown eyes full of sleep and hope. Lucas forced a smile, hiding the shaking of his hands. Hey, princess. Daddy's home. Alice ran and jumped into his arms. Lucas held her, ignoring the pain in his back. Her hug was the only warm thing in his world now. You took a long time, she whispered. I thought the snow monster got you. He almost did, Lucas laughed, his voice cracking. But I escaped. Did you bring the special dinner? Lucas's heart stopped. The chicken. He had promised a roast chicken and a chocolate cake from the bakery, but the money had gone to the tow. He looked at the empty table. Alice. The shop was closed because of the snow, honey. The snow monster closed everything. The girl's face fell. The disappointment was silent, which hurt much more than if she had cried. Oh, that's okay. We can have cereal again. I like cereal. Her understanding and maturity broke Lucas's heart into 1,000 pieces. She was already used to being disappointed. No, Lucas said, a fierce determination rising in his feverish eyes. No cereal. We're going to make pancakes. Christmas pancakes with snow topping? Sugar. What do you think? Alice smiled, a beautiful gap-toothed smile. Yay! That night, while Alice slept with a belly full of dough and sugar, Lucas sat at the kitchen table. He pulled out an old shoebox where he kept important documents. On top of the pile was the court notice. State of Illinois versus Lucas Miller. Custody hearing, December 26th, 09 m. Presiding, Judge, Honor Richard Sterling. Lucas ran his hand over the paper. His hands were too hot now. The fever was really setting in. He coughed, a dry, painful sound. He had saved someone's daughters today, but who would save his on Monday? He looked at the photo of Alice. "I'm not going to lose you," he whispered to the empty room. "Even if I have to crawl to that courtroom." Little did he know that the man he would face on Monday had already formed an opinion about men like him. And little did Judge Sterling know that the opportunist he despised was the guardian angel of his daughters. Fate was setting the stage for the final confrontation. And Christmas was just beginning. The morning of December 26th didn't bring the miracle Lucas hoped for. It brought only a 102-degree fever and a leaden gray sky. The alarm went off at 6 a.m., but Lucas had already been awake for hours, shivering under 3 blankets. Every bone in his body ached. His throat felt like it had swallowed shards of glass, the price paid for the blizzard and the lack of a coat on that road. He got up, the world spinning slightly. "Focus, Lucas. Focus. It's today," he told the bathroom mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't encouraging. Deep-set eyes, pale and sweaty skin, unshaven face. His blade had broken and he forgot to buy another. He looked like a man who had spent the night in a bar, not a dedicated father. He put on his only suit. It was a cheap black suit, bought at a thrift store for his mother's funeral 5 years ago. The sleeves were a bit short and the fabric was frayed at the elbows, but it was the best he had. He tried to cover the makeshift bandage on his right hand, the deep cut he got on the Mercedes engine, with a skin-colored Band-Aid, but it still looked ugly and inflamed. The truck didn't start, as expected. Lucas had to take 2 buses to get to the courthouse, holding Alice's hand tightly the entire way. The girl was silent, feeling the tension radiating from her father like static electricity. He left Alice with Mrs. Martha, who would wait in the courthouse children's lobby. "Daddy will be back soon," he promised, kissing her forehead. He felt like he was burning up. "You're hot, Daddy," Alice said, worried. "It's just the building's heater, honey. It's going to be okay." Courtroom 402 was imposing. Dark wood, leather benches, the gold state crest on the wall. It smelled of furniture polish and broken lives. Across the aisle, Vanessa, his ex-wife, looked like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine. She wore an impeccable cream suit, brushed hair and discreet makeup that screamed, "responsible mother." Beside her was the lawyer, Mr. Vance, a man with a shark-like smile and a watch that cost more than Lucas's apartment. Vanessa didn't even look at him. She was looking at her phone, typing furiously. "All rise!" the bailiff shouted, his voice cutting through the air. "The Honorable Judge Richard Sterling presiding." The side door opened and Judge Sterling entered. The black robe seemed to make him even larger, more frightening. He walked with the confidence of a king in his castle. Lucas felt a chill down his spine. It was him. The twins' father? Lucas wasn't sure. On the road it was dark, blizzard. But those eyes, that penetrating look he had seen in the girl's mental rearview mirror. No, it couldn't be. It would be too much of a coincidence. The judge sat down, adjusted his glasses, and opened the folder in front of him with a sharp motion. He didn't even look at those present yet. He was reading, judging the papers before judging the people. Case 4492B. Custody of Alice Marie Miller. Parties present? "Present, Your Honor," said Vanessa's lawyer, his voice smooth and confident. "Present, Your Honor," said Lucas. His voice came out raspy, broken, followed by a dry cough he couldn't hold back. Judge Sterling looked up. His gaze swept the room. It passed over Vanessa, approving of the polished appearance, passed over the expensive lawyer, and landed on Lucas. The judge's eyes narrowed. What Sterling saw wasn't a hero. He saw a man sweating buckets in an air-conditioned courtroom. He saw an ill-fitting suit. He saw trembling hands and a dirty bandage. He saw instability. "Mr. Vance, you may begin," said the judge, looking back at the papers with disdain. Vanessa's lawyer stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Your Honor, we will be brief. The case is simple. My client, Mrs. Vanessa, offers a stable home, adequate financial resources, and a healthy routine. The father, Mr. Lucas Miller." He made a dramatic pause, pointing at Lucas. "Well, the court can see for itself. He is effectively unemployed, living on odd jobs. He lives in a neighborhood with high crime rates. And frankly, Your Honor, his physical state today suggests he is in no condition to take care of himself, let alone a 6-year-old child. He appears impaired. Lucas jumped up, his chair scraping on the floor. I'm not impaired. I'm sick. Silence. The judge's gavel hit. The sound was like a gunshot in the room. Mr. Miller, sit down. You will speak when it is your turn. And I advise you to control your temper. This is not counting in your favor. Lucas sat down, his face burning with shame and fever. He looked at the judge, trying to make eye contact, trying to show his soul. But Sterling was a wall of ice. Proceed, ordered the judge. The lawyer continued, painting Lucas as an irredeemable failure. He spoke of the late rent. He spoke of the old car. Every word was a stab. When it was Lucas's turn, he had no money for a lawyer and was defending himself, assisted only by an overworked public defender who barely knew his name. He stood up with difficulty. Your Honor, Lucas began, his voice trembling. I love my daughter. I work 16 hours a day. I'm a delivery driver by day and I wash dishes at night. And is that a life for a child? Judge Sterling interrupted, his voice cold. A father who is never home? Who arrives exhausted? Who doesn't have a safe vehicle in case of an emergency? I have a vehicle. The report says your vehicle is broken, that you rely on buses. What happens if Alice has a 104-degree fever in the middle of the night, Mr. Miller? Are you going to take her to the hospital on a bus? Lucas swallowed hard. The question was fair, but cruel. Cars break down, Your Honor. It happens. It broke down on Christmas Eve because I stopped to help someone on the road. My battery died trying to save someone else. Judge Sterling let out a short, cynical laugh. Ah, of course. The Good Samaritan defense. Do you expect this court to believe that you lost your means of transportation doing charity in a blizzard? Mr. Miller, I've been in this seat for 20 years. I've heard every excuse. The dog ate my homework. I stopped to help an old lady. The reality is that you are irresponsible. The words hit Lucas like stones. The judge didn't believe him. No one did. Lucas lowered his head, defeated. He looked at his hands. The bandage on his right hand was leaking blood. The cut he made while tightening the battery cable on the Mercedes belonging to that same man's daughters. At that moment, the back door of the courtroom opened discreetly. 2 young women entered, trying not to make noise. It was Bella and Sophia. They had begged their father to watch him work for a day, saying they wanted to see justice being done. Sterling, proud, had allowed it, provided they stayed silent in the back. Judge Sterling noticed the movement in the back of the room. His eyes softened for a fraction of a second when he saw his daughters, but they soon went back to steel as he faced Lucas. Mr. Miller, based on what has been presented, the financial instability, the lack of transportation, and your apparent deplorable physical condition today, I am inclined to grant temporary custody to the mother. No! Lucas screamed, his voice failing. Please! She doesn't want Alice. She just wants the child support check. She doesn't even know Alice's favorite color. Enough! Sterling raised the gavel to give the final sentence. But then, something happened. Lucas, in his desperation to gesture, hit his injured hand on the table. The old bandage came loose and fell to the floor. The exposed wound was ugly. A deep, irregular cut, smeared with grease that hadn't completely come off. Judge Sterling stopped with the gavel in the air. His eyes focused on Lucas's hand. Grease. Metal cut. He remembered what Sophia had said at dinner. He cut his hand, Dad. It bled a lot when he was messing with the alternator, but he didn't even care. He just wanted the car to work. The judge blinked. He looked at Lucas's face again. Really looked this time. Ignoring the beard, ignoring the sweat of the fever. He saw the eyes. Eyes of honest despair. Sterling looked to the back of the room. His daughters, Bella and Sophia, were pale. Sophia had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with horror, pointing at Lucas. She was whispering something to her sister. They recognized him. Sophia began to stand up, breaking courtroom protocol. Judge Sterling's heart skipped a beat. The irresponsible one. The failure. The man he was about to destroy. Was it him? Was it the man who gave his only scarf to his daughter? The man who refused $500? Sterling's mind, usually so quick and logical, locked up. The weight of the gavel in his hand suddenly felt unbearable. If he hit that gavel now, he would be condemning the man who saved his daughter's lives. But if he stopped, he would have to admit he judged a book by its cover. And Richard Sterling was never wrong. A deadly silence hung over the courtroom. "Your Honor," Vanessa's lawyer called, confused by the judge's hesitation. "The sentence?" Sterling lowered the gavel slowly, but didn't strike. He placed it gently on the wood. He took off his glasses. He wiped the cold sweat that broke out on his own forehead. "The court..." His voice failed, something unheard of. He cleared his throat. "The court declares a 30-minute recess." "Recess?" Vanessa's lawyer protested. "But, Your Honor, it's an open and shut case. The defendant is clearly incompetent." Sterling looked at the lawyer with a sudden fury that made the man shrink back. "I said recess! Bailiff, take Mr. Miller to my chambers, now." "To the holding room, sir?" the bailiff asked. "No," Sterling said, standing up, his robe swinging like a black storm. "To my personal office. And bring water. And a first aid kit." The room exploded in whispers. Vanessa looked at Lucas with hatred and confusion. Lucas was stunned, holding his bleeding hand against his chest. He thought he was being arrested. He looked back, searching for Alice, and saw the two twins in the back of the room crying and smiling at him at the same time. That's when Lucas understood. The judge, the father, the road. Fate wasn't laughing at him. Fate was about to play its cards. Judge Sterling's office felt like a sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling oak bookshelves, thick Persian rugs, the smell of old books and expensive coffee. The silence inside was absolute, isolated from the chaos of the courtroom outside. Lucas was sitting on the edge of a soft leather chair, looking out of place and small. He was holding a clean towel against his injured hand, which a bailiff had handed over along with a first aid kit. The fever made the room sway gently. He was terrified. In his head, going to the office was the prelude to being arrested for contempt. The door opened. Judge Sterling entered. He no longer looked like the giant in a robe from 5 minutes ago. He looked shaken. He had taken off the robe, wearing only a dress shirt and vest. Sterling walked to his desk, but didn't sit down. He stood looking at Lucas. Then he looked at the bandaged hand. "Do you like scotch, Mr. Miller?" Sterling asked, turning to a small bar in the corner. Lucas blinked, confused. I don't drink, Your Honor. Not when I'm with my daughter, and I don't have money for scotch." Sterling let out a heavy sigh. He poured a glass of ice water and placed it in front of Lucas. "Drink. You're burning up with fever." Lucas took the glass with his good hand, trembling so much the water almost overflowed. "Am I going to jail?" Lucas asked, his voice weak. "Look, I swear I didn't mean to shout out there. It's just, she lied. Vanessa lied. I'm a good father." "I know," Sterling said. The two words hung in the air. Lucas raised his head. "What?" Sterling walked around the desk and sat down, taking off his glasses and rubbing his eyes. "On Christmas Eve, my daughters, Bella and Sophia, made it home safely. They told me about a man in an old truck who stopped in the blizzard when no one else would." Lucas's heart raced. "They said the man gave his only scarf to Sophia, that he cut his hand fixing the alternator so they could make it home for dinner, and that he refused $500 because you help because it's the right thing to do, not because of the price." Sterling looked directly into Lucas's eyes. "They also said the man stayed behind, that his car wouldn't start afterward." Lucas looked down, embarrassed. "My battery was already old. It couldn't take the strain." "Did you know it would happen?" Sterling asked, leaning forward. "When you connected those cables, did you know there was a risk of draining your charge and getting stuck?" Lucas shrugged. "They were kids. They were scared. I'm a grown man. I can handle the cold. They couldn't. It was the right thing to do." Sterling leaned back in his chair, suddenly looking very small for that enormous position. "The right thing," he whispered. "I spend my days judging the character of men, Mr. Miller. I pride myself on knowing who is good and who is bad just by looking at them. And today I looked at you and saw an irresponsible vagrant. I was ready to take your daughter away from you." The judge's brutal honesty made Lucas hold his breath. "And do you know what's worse?" Sterling continued, his voice heavy with guilt. "I am the father of those girls. I was at home, drinking my warm scotch, complaining that they were late, while you were freezing on the road saving their lives. You saved my family's Christmas, Lucas, and I almost destroyed yours. There was a knock on the door. "Come in," Sterling said. Bella and Sophia entered. Both of their eyes were red from crying. As soon as they saw Lucas, they ran to him. "Lucas!" Sophia exclaimed, ignoring protocol and hugging the dirty, sick man. "My God, you're burning up! Dad, you have to call a doctor!" "I'm fine," Lucas tried to say, but emotion was closing his throat. Bella looked at her father with a look of defiance. "You were going to take his daughter, weren't you? You were going to give her to that woman out there who didn't even look at us when we came in." Sterling raised his hand. "I made a mistake. A grave mistake. But I haven't given the sentence yet." He looked at Lucas again. "Mr. Miller, I can't change the past. I can't erase the cold you went through or the humiliation you suffered in my court today. But I can do what I was sworn to do. Justice." He picked up the phone from his desk. "Carla, bring me Mrs. Vanessa Miller's full file. Not the summary her lawyer sent. I want the full history. Fines, infractions, hospital records. Everything. Now." Lucas looked at the judge, not understanding. "But you said she was perfect." "Lawyers are paid to paint pretty pictures, Lucas. But the truth always leaves tracks. If you are the man my daughters say you are, then there's a good chance the story I was told out there is incomplete." Sterling stood up, energy returning to his body. "Rest here, Lucas. The girls will look after you. I'm going back into that courtroom, and we're going to finish this the right way." Lucas saw the judge put the robe back on. This time, he didn't look like an executioner. He looked like an avenging angel. As Sterling walked out the door, Sophia squeezed Lucas's good hand. "Everything's going to be okay now, Lucas. My dad can be tough, but he hates being in debt, and he owes his daughters' lives to you." Back in the courtroom, the murmur was constant. Vanessa was retouching her lipstick, impatient. "How much longer is this going to take?" she complained to her lawyer. "I have a flight to Aspen at 5 p.m. If I miss it, that loser is paying for the rebooking." "Calm down, Vanessa. The judge is just putting on a show. He's already decided. The guy is a train wreck. The victory is ours." "All rise." Judge Sterling entered. The atmosphere had changed. The air was heavier, charged with electricity. He sat down. He didn't look at the papers. He looked directly at Vanessa. "Mrs. Vanessa Miller," he said. His voice was no longer cold. It was dangerously calm. "Yes, Your Honor," she replied with her best rehearsed smile. "During the recess, my team pulled some records that your lawyer forgot to attach to the case." Vanessa's smile wavered. Her lawyer stiffened. Sterling held up a sheet of paper. "Mr. Vance painted Mr. Lucas as financially unstable. But it says here that you receive child support of $1,500 a month from Mr. Lucas, which he has never been a day late on in the last 3 years. Even earning little, he pays." Lucas, who had just entered the room, brought by the bailiff and sitting in a more comfortable chair, widened his eyes. The judge had found the receipts. "And there's more," Sterling continued. "Your lawyer questioned Mr. Lucas's character. But I see here 3 police reports in the last year in Mrs. Vanessa's name. Disturbing the peace. Public intoxication. And an incident at a nightclub where you reportedly left your daughter, Alice, alone in the car in the parking lot for 2 hours. The courtroom gasped collectively. Vanessa turned pale as a ghost. That was a misunderstanding," she stuttered. "I just went to get something." 2 hours? Sterling thundered. "In a parking lot?" The judge leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Mrs. Vanessa, appearances are deceiving. Mr. Lucas came in here looking like a broken man, but his records show a father who sacrifices everything, even his own health, to support his daughter. You came in here looking like Mother of the Year, but the records show negligence and selfishness." He picked up the gavel. Lucas held his breath. He felt a small hand grip his. Alice had run from the back of the room and was by his side. The bailiff pretended not to see. "The court decides," Sterling's voice echoed like divine thunder, "to grant full and permanent custody of the minor Alice Marie Miller to the father, Lucas Miller. Vanessa, you will be allowed supervised visitation pending completion of a rehabilitation program. This hearing is adjourned." Bam! Lucas fell to his knees. Not because of the fever, but because the weight of the world had just lifted from his shoulders. Alice hugged him, crying with joy, without even fully understanding what had happened, only knowing that her father was crying and smiling. From his bench, Judge Sterling looked at Lucas. He didn't smile. He just nodded, a brief and respectful tilt of the head. One warrior recognizing another. But the story didn't end there. Justice had been done, but Lucas was still sick, broke, and without a car in the middle of winter. Judge Sterling knew that, and he had a plan. The courtroom was falling behind, but the echo of that gavel striking still resonated in Lucas's ears. He walked through the wide marble corridors holding Alice's hand, as if she were made of glass. "Did we win, Daddy?" she asked, her voice echoing in the empty hall. Lucas stopped. He knelt down, ignoring the dizziness that made his vision darken for a second. He held her little face with his trembling hands. "Yes, honey. We won. No one is taking you away from me. Never." Alice smiled and hugged his neck. Her warmth was the only thing keeping Lucas standing. The adrenaline of the confrontation was fading. And now the reality of the illness was coming back with full force. His legs felt like lead. He was sweating cold. And worst of all, he had no car. He would have to drag his daughter to the bus stop in the cold and wait who knows how long. They stepped out through the revolving doors into the freezing afternoon air. The snow had stopped, but the wind still bit. Lucas adjusted Alice's thin coat. "Come on, princess. The bus comes in 10 minutes. "Mr. Miller!" The voice came from behind. Deep, authoritative, but without the coldness from before. Lucas turned around. Judge Richard Sterling was coming down the courthouse steps. He was no longer wearing his robe. He wore a gray wool overcoat, leather gloves, and an elegant scarf. But what surprised Lucas wasn't the expensive clothing. It was the expression on the man's face. There was no judgment there. There was respect. Beside him, Bella and Sophia came running down the steps. "Lucas!" Sophia shouted, waving. Lucas tried to smile, but the world spun. He staggered to the side, leaning against a concrete pillar so he wouldn't fall. "Daddy!" Alice screamed, frightened. Sterling was faster than his age suggested. He ran down the last few steps and grabbed Lucas by the arm before he hit the ground. "Whoa! Easy there, soldier!" Sterling said, holding Lucas's weight firmly. "You're burning up, man. You need a hospital." "No," Lucas muttered, trying to pull away, but without strength. "No hospital. No money. I just need to go home. Rest." "You're not going home on a bus in this state," Sterling said, in a tone that admitted no argument. "Sophia, open the car." "What?" Lucas blinked, confused. "No, I can't." "Mr. Miller, Lucas." The judge looked into his eyes. "You saved my daughters from freezing on the road. You sacrificed your car, your health, and almost lost custody of your daughter because you stopped to help strangers. Let me do the only sensible thing today and give you a ride." Lucas looked at Alice. She was looking at the twins with curiosity. "All right." Lucas gave in, exhaustion winning over pride. The judge's car was a huge SUV, heated, smelling like new leather. Lucas sat in the front seat, sinking into comfort he hadn't felt in years. Alice went in the back, between Bella and Sophia, who immediately began entertaining her, complimenting her hair and asking about school. As the car glided through the city streets, the silence between the two men in the front seat was heavy. "Did you know?" Lucas asked quietly, looking at the road. "When you walked into the room today, did you know it was me?" Sterling gripped the steering wheel. "No, not at first. I only saw a case number and a man who seemed not to care." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "I judged you by the cover, Lucas. I committed the sin I swore to fight." "Everyone judges," Lucas said, closing his eyes. "It's easier than trying to understand. My daughters told me what you said," Sterling continued. "When they offered money, you said, 'We help because it's the right thing to do, not because of the price.'" Lucas smiled weakly. "It's what my father used to tell me." "It's a lesson I had forgotten," the judge admitted. "I spend so much time applying the law that sometimes I forget about justice. The law said you were poor and unstable. Justice said you were the only worthy man in that room." The car entered Lucas's neighborhood. The landscape changed. Designer shops gave way to corner stores with bars on the windows. Clean streets gave way to sidewalks with piled-up dirty snow. Sterling parked in front of Lucas's brick building. It looked out of place there, like a spaceship landed in the slums. "Thank you, Your Honor," Lucas said, opening the door. "Richard," the judge corrected. "Outside the court, my name is Richard." Lucas got out, helping Alice out. His legs were a bit firmer, but he knew the fever would come back full force at night. "Lucas, wait," Richard said, getting out of the car too. The twins followed close behind. Richard pulled a card from his pocket and a pen. He wrote something on the back. "This is my personal number, not the office. Personal. If you need anything, medicine, food, anything for Alice, you call." Lucas looked at the card. "I appreciate it, but we'll be fine. I get paid on Friday." Richard smiled, shaking his head. "You're stubborn, Lucas Miller, proud. I respect that. But understand one thing. This isn't charity. It's a debt. You looked after my blood. I look after yours." Before Lucas could respond, Sophia ran to him and gave him a tight hug. "Thank you for saving us, and sorry for my dad being an idiot earlier." "Sophia!" Richard reprimanded, but there was a smile on his lips. "It's true!" she laughed. Lucas watched the SUV pull away in the dark street. He held Alice's hand and went up the stairs to his cold apartment. When they walked in, reality hit. The apartment was freezing. The building's central heater must have broken again. The fridge was empty except for half a quart of milk and 2 eggs. Lucas sat on the couch, covering Alice with every blanket they had. "Let's make a fort?" he suggested, trying to keep her spirits up. "To stay warm?" "Yes!" Alice cheered, though her lips were blue. Lucas looked at the judge's card on the table. He wasn't going to call. He couldn't be a charity case. He had won his daughter back with the truth. He was going to keep her with his own effort. He fell asleep on the couch, shivering, holding his daughter, praying the fever would break by morning so he could look for a new job, since the delivery gig was likely lost without a car. The next morning, Lucas woke up to knocking on the door. Loud, persistent. He looked at the clock. 8 a.m. His head still ached, but the fever had broken during the night. He was sweaty, but lucid. "Coming!" he shouted, tripping over the blankets. Who could it be? The landlord collecting rent early? The police with bad news about Vanessa? He opened the door. The hallway was empty of people. But the floor was full. There were boxes, so many boxes. Grocery boxes full of food. Bags from winter clothing stores. A large box wrapped in bright gift paper with the name Alice on it. And leaning against the wall was a simple white envelope with the name Lucas. Lucas looked around. No one. He picked up the envelope. Inside was a car key and a handwritten note in elegant, firm calligraphy. "Lucas, last night I spoke with my daughters. They reminded me that a man cannot work without tools, and a father cannot protect his family if he is on foot in the winter. In your building's garage, space 12, you will find something. It's not new. It was the car Sophia used before she got the new one, the one that broke. She insisted it go to someone who knows how to fix things. Consider it fair payment for emergency mechanical services rendered on Highway 89. P.S. The job of head of maintenance at the county courthouse is vacant. The pay is good. Benefits include full family health insurance, and it's a warm place. I hope to see you Monday at 8 a.m. for the interview. Don't be late. Richard Sterling." Lucas felt warm tears fill his eyes. He looked at the key in his hand. It wasn't a handout. It was an opportunity. It was dignity restored. "Daddy, who is it?" Alice appeared at the door, rubbing her eyes. Lucas turned around, showing her the boxes. I think Santa came late, honey." Alice ran to see the gifts. Lucas went to the window and looked at the street. The snow sparkled under the morning sun. The world didn't look gray and cold anymore. It looked full of light. He knew life would still be tough. But now, he knew he wasn't fighting alone. The kindness he threw into the world during the storm had come back to him like an avalanche of hope. 3 months have passed since that Christmas blizzard. The snow has melted, giving way to the first flowers of spring in Chicago. And with the change of season, Lucas's life has also flourished. The county courthouse no longer felt like a place of fear for him. Now, it was his territory. Lucas walked through the corridors in an impeccable blue uniform, a ring of keys on his belt, and most importantly, his head held high. As head of maintenance, he didn't just fix light bulbs and heaters, he kept the place running. As he was adjusting a door on the 3rd floor, Judge Richard Sterling walked by, his black robe flowing, followed by 2 hurried lawyers. The lawyers didn't even notice the maintenance worker, but Sterling stopped. "Is the heating in Annex B stable, Mr. Miller?" the judge asked in a professional tone. "Working perfectly, Your Honor," Lucas replied with a discreet smile. "And the car, the new car, running like a dream. Alice loved that the radio works." "Good. Keep up the good work." They exchanged a brief nod. They didn't need to say anything else. That look carried the whole story: the dark road, the hasty judgment, and the redemption. Sterling continued on his way, a better and more human judge, remembering every day to look beyond appearances. That afternoon, Lucas picked up Alice from school. Not by bus, and not in the old truck, which he sold for scrap, but in the silver Honda Civic that had belonged to Sophia. Alice ran to the car, holding a drawing. "Daddy, look!" It was a drawing of 3 stick figures: Lucas, Alice, and a large man in a black robe, all holding hands under a yellow sun. "It's beautiful, honey," Lucas said, feeling a lump in his throat. Life didn't become perfect by magic. Lucas still worked hard, still had bills to pay. Vanessa, his ex-wife, was doing community service and attending mandatory meetings, trying to get herself right so that maybe one day she could regain visitation rights. But the fear, the constant fear of losing his daughter, that had disappeared. Lucas looked at the sky through the windshield. He thought about that cold night. If he had driven past, if he had ignored those 2 girls to get home 10 minutes earlier, he would have lost everything. The universe has a funny way of keeping the books. Sometimes, the hardest test of your life comes disguised as an inconvenience on the road. Lucas learned that kindness is not a business transaction. You don't do good expecting change back. But sometimes, life gives us back exactly what we offer to the world. He stopped to fix an engine in the snow and ended up fixing his own life. He saved 2 strangers from the cold, and they saved his world. And perhaps there is no more powerful Christmas lesson than the one Jesus himself left us. Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So remember Lucas's story. Remember that when you reach out to someone in the storm, you may be serving a purpose much greater than you imagine. The only judgment that truly matters is not the one from a gavel in a courtroom, but the one we carry in our hearts. If this story touched your soul and reminded you of the true spirit of Christmas, like this video to spread this message of hope. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell, because here we tell stories that matter. And let me know in the comments, have you ever received unexpected help that felt like a miracle? Share your blessing with us. Until next time, God bless you, and remember, do good without looking at to whom. Merry Christmas.